this presentation using GS to contend with the new writing because there's been a lot of talk in the English literary world about the new writing. And my attitude is, we don't really know what that really means 100% yet. And the conclusions that I wanted to draw here today, it seems as if Tom read my mind. Where are you, Tom? Yeah, right. I mean, so I'm not even going to give you my conclusion. I'll save you the time. I know it's getting late, okay? And that presentation that Corey gave, you're going to hear a little bit of repetition because of some of the things that Corey said, and also some of the things that before Robert read his Twitter novel. So I'm going to rush through those parts. But I have somebody who's a fan of mine in the room, Doris. Anytime you feel I'm going too fast, just tell me to slow down, okay? I love this picture of myself because it is it serves two purposes in my life. It reminds me of how silly I look to others when I take myself too seriously. That picture was taken about 15 years ago when I was trying to deal with two argumentative daughters. In the morning when I was still drinking a cup of coffee. And the other reason is because it really looks like I don't know anything, and that really is me. I feel that in the state of you never know, I could be the governor for a lifelong term. So I want to start by giving you kind of a context for what I'm going to talk about. Two guys walk into a bar, right? This is going to be the brief history of philosophy. One guy's name is Rene. I think, therefore I am. Then a guy named Steve comes in. Yo, Renee, you want an iPhone? I think not. Then you ain't. That's it. That's the history of philosophy in a nutshell, right? Chances are, if Renee were here today, he would say, I text, therefore I am. You know what I mean? This seems to be the most pervasive tool that we use today. And I was doing a writing class in a company the other day. There were not that many people in it, but I saw a Galaxy 3. Someone had, the screen is about as big as this, you have to have a wheelbarrow to carry it. But at my age, boys and girls, you like that because the screen is very big. And I said, wow, that is so cool. And then I said to someone else, which one do you have? And he said, I have the 1. And then another guy said, I have the 2. And this other guy in the class said, wow, all 3 generations, that's so cool. I just find that this is what seems to matter today. So I'm just going to briefly talk about, this is sort of like a sequel to what I talked about last year. So just some earlier things, I'm going to summarize that very quickly because I recognize a lot of familiar faces. Some things that I've noticed from then until now, and like I said, I'm going to skip past this look ahead, especially since we're 4 in this panel, and I want to just move this along. So last year I talked about the impact of technology on writing. I think you've heard this all today in that panel I was just referring to. The response from the education community and what I thought at that time was what I've been doing successfully. So the opportunity for GS. A gentleman asked earlier about copyright, and there was an article, it's already, look how old, it's 6 years old. He said, forget about copyright. You really have to, we're going to have to rethink what copyright is, and it's because of the pervasiveness of technology, especially scanning technology. And I think you might remember the article called The Web Means the End of Forgetting, which is really about the fact that you can't deny anything you did. If you think you deleted an email, it's still there. The jury is still out, by the way, on whether if I say something on Facebook that's pro-Palestinian or pro-Israeli or the jury is still out as to whether I'm liable. Am I really speaking just to friends on Facebook or not? Because I am hearing cases that have gone either way. But still, don't say anything out there unless you want it heard. And then, of course, another article reminded us of how real ethical possibilities come up today, right? Because what's life? And that's Dolly, the taxidermed Dolly, the first cloned creature. And 3D printing, if you're not familiar with it, has also had a tremendous impact. I know it's only in its beginning stages, but our traditional commerce communities are disappearing, right? The bookstores, I don't need to tell you, right? And even assembly lines, I have a feeling we will one day be making our own cars, our own machines are having us think like them. And then, of course, and I think you quoted this article also, right, Rob? Is Google making us stupid? What I love about this article is if you go into Google and just type in is G, then that's the first thing that comes up, is Google making us stupid. So, and, you know, it talks about what I call our universal ADD. So what the rhetoricians have done, I'm talking about like the National Council of Teachers of English, you know, they said the 5-paragraph traditional essay is gone. Describe new models of writing emerging from the internet. Design a K-12, graduate school writing curriculum to address these models, and to develop teaching models for this curriculum. So, you know, we're really trying to move away from what most of us, there are still some pretty young people in the room, I won't look at them right now, but, you know, most of us were taught, you know, if you don't want to pay attention in class, you write that 5-paragraph essay in standard English, you'll at least get a C, you know? But that's considered an archaic model. So I bragged at that time last year about, you know, just 4 examples of the many that I use that help me really get people, although I don't use this precise terminology, to get people to write greater information, to provide more context in their ideas. And I'm talking about ideas on the job, reports, proposals, that sort of thing. But then I started to think, not so fast. Yeah, how do you really know that you are transferring this information? It's much easier to talk about this stuff than to actually do it. And I feel that these terms are so invisible to the world today, but they have never been so important as they are today. So I want to just give you an idea of what our challenge is. I think it's that, right? It's that people are not even looking at TV screens anymore. They're just looking at the palm of their hand. And I don't know, but somehow, where's Valerie? Somehow, Valerie, they still are having sex. You could tell this guy is just waiting for them, you know, for their batteries to die, you know what I mean? You could just tell, look at him. Okay, and this quote really was so ahead of its time, wasn't it? If you can't read it, this is in Science and Sanity. Experience shows that the more technically developed a nation is, or a race is, the more cruel, ruthless, predatory, and commercialized its systems tend to become. And wow, 80 years ago, right? And I wonder if this guy, Jacob Nielsen, who's an internet guru, had read Science and Sanity or borrowed when he said, and when he's talking about users, he's talking about any of us when we go online to get information. You know, I've already seen Corey juggling since you spoke, you know. I saw you, pretty cool, man, pretty cool. All right, and we're selfish, lazy, and ruthless. Just give me what I want. I don't want to get deep into it. I already know what I want. Just take me there, okay? So, you know, I really do feel that things just ain't what they used to be. An article that isn't really that recent, it's already 4 years old, talks about the textual changes, meaning that, you know, we're looking for hyperlinks, we're looking for videos, for vlogging, and not even blogging anymore. Blogging is so 21st century. We're into already to the 2nd decade of it. Relational, and I think you've heard it before, how people are communicating with each other. Writers and readers are communicating with each other constantly. I think Corey said it best. Spatial boundaries are being broken, and also temporal. I mean, you know, we're communicating, IMing people around the world instantly. So I had a job interview a couple of months ago on Skype. The interviewer was in Beijing, I was in New York. You know, and I'm going. If the hurricane doesn't strike, I'll be going to my first day of employment in a couple of days. So, you know, that's the way life has changed. What does it mean? I want to just give you a few quotes from a couple of books, 3 of them, actually 2 books, 1 article. From, anybody read this book, Distracted? Yeah, this actually preceded Sherry Turkle's book. She writes, "We're beginning to see a time of darkness when amid a plethora of high-tech connectivity, we think togetherness means keeping one eye, hand, or ear on our gadgets, ever ready to tune into a new channel of life. We should be concerned when we sense that short-term thinking in the workplace eclipses intellectual pattern making, and when we're staking our cultural memory largely on digital data that is disappearing at astounding rates. And sort of a follow-up to Is Google Making Us Stupid? Same publisher, Atlantic Monthly, this year came out with this article, Is Facebook Making Us Lonely? And I'm going to quote from this. We are living in an isolation that would have been unimaginable to our ancestors, and yet we have never been more accessible. Over the past 3 decades, technology has delivered to us a world in which we need not be out of contact for a fraction of a moment. And last year's speaker, right, Ms. Turkle says, technology promises to let us do anything from anywhere with anyone. But it also drains us as we try to do everything everywhere. We begin to feel overwhelmed and depleted by the lives technology makes possible. We may be free to work from anywhere, but we are also prone to being lonely everywhere. So I am seeing examples of this from all over my job, that technology rules. It was only a half joke, this thing about Steve and Renee, because I'm reading the College of Composition and Communication, an article on eye tracking technology. That would have been unthinkable years ago, right? I mean, even in recent times, but now we're looking at eye tracking technology. Why? Because maybe we want to write to those tendencies. That's why. All of these different social networking devices. An article in Research in the Teaching of English followed a student and his whole multiple identities that he creates, as we all do. I mean, Corey, you have a couple of different identities through what you're doing, and I do as well. I use Facebook for one reason, I use LinkedIn for something else, and I use Twitter for something else. We have these multiple identities, but the fact that Research in the Teaching of English writes about this particular college student and shadows him as he's going through his life on campus is just telling us that, this has a lot of credence. This is the literature of today. Now, nothing for me said it more than this particular page out of a book. It was actually a book that's been readily online for a long time, and an addendum to the book came out with an official memo, followed by this and a couple of other pages. And you know what these things are, right? Emoticons. The name of the book is The Tongue and Quill, the official publication of the United States Air Force. All right? I mean, when I saw that, and they're one of my clients, and when I saw that, I said, what? I mean, are they saying it's cool? And then, they're saying use it with, a lot of caution, but this is acceptable. So, I mean, it's becoming more and more apparent that our language is dramatically changing. Now, I have a little bit of a theory on that, and I might conclude with that in a minute or two, but I keep seeing it everywhere. I see it in the classroom. My wife is a middle school teacher. Her school district just invested $250,000 to buy 3,000, let me get that number right, to buy 3,000 iPads. The goal is to have all 710 teachers and all 9,500 students have an iPad. You will never see a book in that school again. And Old Bridge Public Schools is not exactly the most affluent school district in the nation. I'm sure there are many that are doing that. So the Apple campaign, textbooks for iPad, or is it the other way around, iPad for textbook, whatever, it's going to save people a lot of money. That huge investment is worth it to companies, the promise of interactivity and all of that. And then even from my practice, just 4 questions that I heard within the last, in October, and this isn't the first time, of course. Do you do online training? Do you do webinars? Do you do remote assessment? Do you do full semester courses in 1 hour? All right, basically, can you teach writing in a way that transcends time, place, and human connection? In other words, can you beat a machine? That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing it. This is was my pride and joy. Those are my bookcases at home, and I'm actually getting embarrassed by it now. I really am. Everybody else's house looks so much cleaner, and all they have are a couple of handheld But I do think that if we need to get information on that we're really prizing summary over substance and immediacy over analysis. I really think that's what's going on. I constantly see examples, and one of the greatest innovations that I do in a class is tell them bluff, B-L-U-F, bottom line up front. The thing you said at the bottom, just bring it to the top. That's all your manager wants to know. You're recommending an investment of so much money into something, and that's it. Okay? I want to just give you two quick stories, very quick, that kind of made me start to feel over the past year, I don't know, how am I going to get general semantics into this all? And I think Tom asked the same questions, and I think that discussion already took place, but I do want to share this story with you anyway. I did actually say at an appropriate time, and Ed, I was asking you, how do we bring it in? I got this person talking in a class, and there were about 15 people in the room, and I finally said, well, you know, there's a concept called, and I felt it was perfect timing to bring this up. Do you get it? Do you really know what I mean by the map is not the territory? Look at a map. Is that what you're going to see when you get there? And someone yelled out, who needs a map? I got a GPS. You know what I mean? So they're not even reading, you know what I mean? It's not even the written word that matters. I know it was a bad joke by that particular student, but it's telling me that, you know, I'm not stepping into a car asking anybody for directions anymore. That interaction is gone. I just say, yeah, just tell me where you live, I'll get there. And I'm just going to, you know, depend on some Siri talking to me, right? Okay, and just one other thing that occurred to me as I was watching these presidential debates. Every single day I was following one station because probably the one because my uncles from Australia call me and from Malta and from England and they say they watch CNN. So I think, you know, that's probably the most pervasive. So, you know, every single day they've been putting on a truth meter. And I said, you know, that's good. I said, Obama lied when he said this, Romney lied when he said that, that's cool. But then I started putting the stopwatch to this stuff, you know? And what they really spend most time on is things like the strategy, the body language, the attitude. Obama was sleeping. We heard that so much in the first speech. And I'm not trying to tip off my politics to you. I'm just saying the truth doesn't even seem to matter that much in these debates. And you can't get a more global debate than President of the United States, I think. And I said I was going to skip through this stuff because, you know, a lot of this was already said, and I don't want to look like I'm plagiarizing from Tom. So I just want to